Let's say you're entering the last step of the Roux method. So you're inserting your UL, your edges, and then now it's 4C. Have you ever struggled to figure out which case this is? Well, you're not alone, because this is a very common thing. Certain cases look exactly the same from the front, but in fact they are different cases and need to be solved differently. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you a better method of telling which case this is. This method does not involve having to peek at the bottom or at the back to gain more information. Instead, what you do is when you insert your UL, UR edges, you look ahead to some other edges, and that will tell you exactly how to solve the case, and you don't need to pause. So that is the power of what's called a DFDB method. DFDB is pretty simple. The first step is to track a pair of edges. So first let me introduce what friend edges are. So if we look at the M slice of this cube, friend edges are edges that share the same top or bottom color. So for example, this edge is friends with this one because they both share yellow on the top or bottom. And then these two are friends because they share white on the top or bottom. So what we need to do is first ignore the UL, UR edges because we know exactly where they're going. We're going to solve them, right? So out of the 4 remaining edges, pick 2 that are friends and then keep an eye on them. Keep track of where they're going. So for example, we're going to solve the UL, UR edges with an M2, right? So we want to track where these 2 are going. So this edge is going to end up at the bottom back position. Good to know. And then this edge is going to stay at the top. Also good to know. So that is the first thing to look out for. Where do they end up? The position of the 2 friends will tell you what type of case you're getting. So there are 2 types, cycles and non-cycles. Cycles are cases where you have a single edge that is solved, and then there are 3 other edges that need to go around in a cycle. Non-cycles are everything else. So let's talk about non-cycles first. One thing to notice is that they always have the 2 friends both on the top or both on the bottom. Let's say you're going back to inserting the left and right edges. And let's keep track of a pair of friends. You can see these 2. When you do the M2 insert, they both end up on the bottom. And so that tells you it's a non-cycle case. Going back, we could have also kept track of these 2 friends. And then when we do the M2, they both stay on the top. So because they're both on the top or both on the bottom, that tells you it's a non-cycle case. Non-cycle cases are nice because when you look at them on the front, you know exactly which case it is. That's because they're always symmetric. The front always looks the same as the back. So when you look at them, you can tell immediately which case this is, and then you can solve it as you normally would. Here's a tip to save one move for the non-cycle cases. So if we're going to insert your left and right edges, sometimes instead of aligning these to be solved immediately, sometimes you can save some moves by putting them in the wrong position. And that's because, consider this case where if you align them, you then need to swap these 2 edges to solve this 4C case, but you just did a U, and then now you have to do a U2, and that's a waste of moves. So instead what you can do is, let's go back to where you need to insert these, right? M2, look at this sticker and align it to the matching center. So this matches with green at the back. So if you just align these 2, then you can solve as normally, and then you just canceled a move. You can do the same thing with the sticker on the right side, and then you just match it to its matching center. So that's non-cycle cases. We're not going to focus on them anymore. Now, these are the star of the show today. These are the ones that DFDB really will focus on, because cycles are the ones where if you look at the front, you don't know what case it is. Just like I shown you at the beginning of the video. The 2 friend edges will end up one on the top and one on the bottom. So that's how you tell if you're going to get a cycle case. So an example is, let's say you're going to insert these UL/UR edges, and let's keep track of these two friends. You'll see that this one is going to move all the way to the bottom, while this one will stay at the top. And that's how you tell that it's a cycle case. So far, we've been keeping track of the position of two friend edges. So let's say we're going to insert the UL/UR edges. This edge is going to end up at the bottom here, and then this one stays at the top. So that tells us one at the bottom, one at the top. That's a cycle case. But we need more information to tell which kind of cycle case it is, how to solve it. So the one more piece of information we need is if it's a matching center case or a non-matching center case. Let me show you what I mean. So the edge that is going to the bottom, you want to look at its side color and then see if it will match its side center. This is pretty easy to see for an M2 insert because these two just stay attached, so we know that this is a matching center case. Meanwhile, in this case, when we do an M2, we can see that these two stickers are going to be non-matching. So now I'm going to show you how to solve a matching center case. So we're going to do an M2 again to insert the UL/UR edges. And while we're doing that, we keep track of the position of two edges, two friends. So this friend is going to move to the bottom back position, as you can see here. And then so the first step is to align the U layer so that the two friends are diagonal from each other. So here's one friend. We want the other friend to be diagonal like this. So we do a U prime, and this is what we want. The second step is to raise the dot. So this means to look at these three stickers here, 1, 2, 3, and find the odd one out. This one's the odd one out, and we call it the dot. And we want to raise it, which means do an M slice move to move this dot to the other side of the U layer. So in this case, we'll do an M prime to move it to the other side of the U layer. After you raise the dot, you can do a U2, and then the cube can be obvious like this. You solve it. Let me show you another example of this matching center case. So again, we're going to do an M2 insert, and then we'll keep track of, let's say, these two friends. And then we can see that this one is going to the same position, the bottom back position. And then we want to align the U layer so that these two friends are diagonal. So we'll move this here with a U, and then we'll raise a dot. So 1, 2, 3. This sticker is the odd one out. It's a dot. To raise it, we'll do an M prime to move it to the other side on the U layer, and then do a U2. But now the cube hasn't become obvious yet. We'll have to raise the dot again in this case. So here's a new dot, and then we want to raise it to the other side of the U layer. So we'll do an M like this, and then a U2, and then now the cube has become obvious. So that's how you solve the matching center cases. One is to move the friends diagonal from each other, and then two is to raise the dot 1 or 2 times. So far, we've only been talking about M2 inserts, which is the simplest way to insert the UL/UR edges, like this. But what's also really cool is that this DFDB recognition works if you have different types of inserts too. So for example, you can see that one of the UL/UR edges is here, and then the other one is here. And then we can insert them like this. And the recognition and everything is exactly the same. So let me show you an example of a matching center case. So let's say we're keeping track of these two friends. While we're doing the insert, we can see that this one is moving to the bottom, and then it's also a matching center case here. Now, the first step, remember, is to get these two friends diagonal. So we'll do U prime, and then we'll raise a dot. So this one's a dot. Want to raise it to the other side of the U layer, and a U2, and then the cube becomes obvious. Let's move on to the non-matching center cases. So let's say we have an M2 insert again, and we're keeping track of these two edges. You can see that this one is going to go the bottom back position, and we know it's a non-matching center case. First step is to align the corners. So we just solve them with the U move, like that. Then the second step will depend on where the two friends ended up. So if we go back to the beginning, and let's keep track of these again. So let's see, this one goes at the bottom back, and this one remains at the top back. This is what we call a stacked case, where these two edges are on top of each other. And whenever you have a stacked case, you automatically do M2, U2. And then raise a dot. So here's a dot, let's raise it, U2, and then the cube becomes obvious. So that's how you solve a stacked case. And I'll give you another example of a stacked case. So this time we have a more complicated ULR insert, so let's do that. We'll keep track of these two friends because they both have white, but it's going to be a bit harder to see what's going on. Let's keep track of these two. We're going to do that insert, and then see that this one ends up at the bottom like this. And then so the first step is to align the corners, and then remember that this friend is here and then its friend is at the bottom back. This is a stacked case again. We do M2 U2 again and then raise a dot. So this is a dot, we'll raise it, U2, cube becomes obvious. But what happens if the two friends are not stacked? I'll show you how to solve that as well. So in this example, we have another M2 insert, and then we'll keep track of these two friends. So M2, this friend is going to go all the way to the bottom back, and we also affirm it's a non-matching center case. All right, so first step of any non-matching center case is to align the corners. And then now we can see that these two friends are a diagonal from each other. They're not stacked. So we'll, instead of doing an M2 U2, we'll immediately raise a dot. So here's a dot. We're going to move it across with an M prime, U2, and then we'll have to raise the dot again. So here's a new dot. We'll raise it up, U2, and now the cube is solved. And then another example of that, but with a more complicated insert. So if you don't know EOLR, like this insert goes like this. This is a case where it's pretty hard to keep track of which friends to track. Like you can't see a pair of friends immediately. So what we'll do is just do the first move, and then that reveals more edges. You can, if we were looking at this side and we could clearly see this edge, doing the first move reveals its friend. Nice. So then we're going to continue with the insert, and see these two friends are like this, and then M prime moves that edge down to the bottom back. And then step 1 is to align the corners. Step 2, remember that the bottom back here is not stacked with this edge. So instead of M2 U2, we will immediately raise a dot. So this dot will go here, U2, and then this dot will go here, U2.